This bulletin proudly brought to you in association with Campbell's Menswear.
Tonight on the South Today, the Prime Minister has announced the loosening of COVID-19 restrictions following news of 2 new people with COVID-19 related to Papatoetoe High School. A couple of rugby playing school pupils are getting serious outdoor training with the aid of a very woolly sheep. And Dunedin entertainer Rainbow Rosalind is celebrating success after being named Children's Educator of the Decade. Kia ora, good evening, I'm Sophie Morris. At 4:30 p.m. this afternoon, Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern and Director General of Health Ashley Bloomfield let the nation know if and when alert levels would be changed. The announcement follows news earlier in the day of 2 new cases of COVID-19 in the Papatoetoe cluster.
This afternoon, COVID Response Minister Chris Hipkins said there are 2 new COVID-19 cases in the Auckland community.
We have received notification this morning of 2 additional cases around our existing 3 community cases. They are both students. One is a close contact of our existing student, and the other is the sibling of the new close contact or the new case.
Following that announcement, at 4:30 this afternoon, Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern advised the nation of the COVID restrictions in place after midnight tonight. Later this afternoon, the Otago University Students Association announced this Saturday's drum and bass event featuring the Upbeats and Tali has been postponed due to COVID-19 concerns. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Auckland will move to level 2 at midnight tonight and the rest of New Zealand will drop to level 1. The Pike River Recovery Agency has reached its furthest point into the West Coast mine where 29 workers died after explosions in 2010. The agency's role is to focus on safely re-entering and recovering the Pike River mine drift to help give families closure.
Yesterday, the team reached the roof fall just over 2 kilometres up the drift access tunnel, marking the furthest point into the mine that the agency plans to recover. Tunnelling had begun last week with mine workers in breathing apparatus tunnelling through a foam plug after walking through an airlock. Chief Operating Officer Dingy Patterson says the team finished the last of the forensic work at the roof fall near the top of the drift just before midday. The agency will now turn its attention to detailed forensic work in the pit bottom and stone area, which is required for the police investigation. In Pike River, the South Today.
2 Year 13 pupils living at a homestay on Scroggs Hill, south of Dunedin, put their rugby playing skills to good use, catching a wild sheep. The ewe, which sports an enormous fleece, hasn't been shorn for a number of years.
It's been a while since this big woolly sheep has been shorn, but a haircut now looks like it's on the cards, thanks to Mahonri Alvaha and his friend Steve catching the ewe after she was seen wandering through the kanuka and gorse scrub of Scroggs Hill.
We've seen them a lot the end of last year around the paddock, and yeah, so we're just waiting for the right opportunity.
He says it was his first time trying to catch the ewe and her slightly less woolly companion, which have both probably spent some years out of human contact.
I've been up close with sheep before. I went on a school camp out in Raglan in primary school, but this is the first time I experienced this, so it wasn't too bad.
Alvaha is down from Auckland to complete his last year at high school before going on to university, possibly to study commerce. But it was a sporting background that helped the 2 of them catch the woolly beasts.
So Steve and I, we do play rugby, and so really was quite a good edge on getting the sheep up.
The plan is now to relieve the ewe of the huge heavy coat and see if she's willing to become a bit more domesticated. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Broadcaster Marcus Lush has been successful in his bid to become an Invercargill City Councillor. Votes for the by-election closed at midday today, and while the results did not include special votes, Mr Lush beat other candidates by securing 7,000 of the more than 13,000 votes counted. Voting opened on January 26th, following the resignation of former Deputy Mayor Tony Biddle in October last year. Deputy Electoral Officer Michael Morris says Lush received more than half of the votes counted, so it was unlikely votes still to be counted would change the result. The candidate with the second most votes was Wayne Harper with 1,400 votes. In total, there were 9 candidates. Dunedin children's entertainer has been named the Children's Entertainer of the Decade by an Australian-based organisation. Rosalind Manowitz performs under the name Rainbow Rosalind and has been developing her kids' shows for a number of years, leading up to this international accolade.
If you or your children have seen a show by Dunedin's Rainbow Rosalind, Kia ora, kei te pehi a koe is a refrain you'll probably recognise, as it's from one of her most successful songs, which she's been performing since the early years.
I worked for a while at Rainbow's End in Auckland as a fairy, and which was one of my dream jobs because I love the idea of being a fairy. And then the two kind of came together when I moved to Dunedin and I started performing as a fairy and singing songs for kids.
This week, Rainbow Rosalind was named the Funky Kids Radio People's Choice Children's Entertainer of the Decade. She says it's amazing to have received the award, especially as she writes and sings songs with tamariki in mind.
It means a lot to me to have received that award because I really love what I do and I do it with the kids in mind.
Rosalind Manowitz gave her first performance as Rainbow Rosalind at Dunedin Public Library in August 2016. She's been developing her craft and business ever since, now employing others to spread fairy magic around the province.
I figured out I couldn't be in 10 places at once because I was doing a lot of parties and shows, and the other thing is that while I was giving all this time to these kids, I was missing out on spending the weekends with my own son.
She imparts positive messages in her songs for children and gets emotional when youngsters sing her words back to her.
My song, I Love Being Me, every time I'm in a show and kids start singing that while I'm singing it back to me, I get really emotional sometimes. I feel a bit teary because it was the purpose of writing that song.
Manowitz is currently working on the second season of Code Fun in the Natural History New Zealand complex. She's also looking forwards to singing with the Dunedin Symphony Orchestra in Arrowtown. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Still to come on the South Today. And also Otago Township has had its historic library extended. We'll see you after the break.
Risk of developing melanoma skin cancer, you owe it to yourself to have a mole map. Mole map is coming to your area. Phone today to make an appointment. It could save your life.
Ah, TV, our favourite babysitter, but it can be tough keeping up with what our tamariki are watching. Luckily, the Broadcasting Standards Authority has made some smart changes to the classification labels. Ooh! Plus changes to the time of day certain rated shows will air and awesome new parental lock features, meaning your babysitter's job is safe. Find out more at safeviewing.co.nz.
A poorly maintained heat pump can lose up to 35% of its output. The Mr. Heat Pump Cleaner team are experts. Their specially developed chemical wash is totally biodegradable. Call Mr. Heat Pump Cleaner and get the job done by the professionals.
Welcome back. Starting next month, some Dunedin buses will no longer be free for Supergold card holders. On weekdays, pensioners are to be charged the standard $2 flat fare during peak times between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. The rest of the time, including weekends and public holidays, travel will still be free. Later this year, we'll see further decisions being made on bus fares, including whether to keep the $2 flat fare. Due to closed borders, the number of overseas students studying at the Otago Polytechnic is about half compared to other years. Most of those enrolled for this year are people who came to New Zealand before the borders shut last March.
Only a handful of overseas students turned up for a free bus tour of Dunedin being put on by the Otago Polytechnic. That's possibly because most overseas students have already been here for a year, such as Ting Chen, who came from China last year, just before the border closed.
Because of the border is closed, so I cannot come back to China, because if I come back, then I can't come here for my husband, so we will be separated. So it's better and safe to stay here. And actually, I'm think like New Zealand is doing a good job, like to protect the people here.
There's only about 70 international students enrolled for programs at the Dunedin Polytechnic campus, which is about half compared to other years. Chen says now that she's stuck in Dunedin with the borders closed, she's starting nursing studies in the hope it might help her find a job in Dunedin. But she admits that studying here was not her original plan.
Well, studying here was not my original plan, because I came here on a work visa. And I had a part-time job, but it's still difficult to find a full-time here, so I was thinking about how about like studying here and get a local degree, and then maybe it's easier for me to find a job.
And high schools around Dunedin are also reporting that the number of overseas pupils currently enrolled in local schools is down to about a quarter compared to other years. In Dunedin, the South Today.
A North Otago township has had its library and local hall refurbished and expanded. Hampton Hall Committee donated the extra space needed for extending the library, which has been part of the town for 150 years.
Just 30 minutes drive south of Oamaru, the township of Hampden has had its library reopened after a year of refurbishments and extensions in time for its 150th anniversary. David Higgins, who is the opoko of the Moeraki Runaka, helped introduce the library's new name, Te Whare Puka Puka o Kurinui, which means the House of Books of Hampden.
You want to say that again? Te Whare Puka Puka o Kurinui. Does anybody know what that means? All you adults and all the people, not you, Alec Campbell. Okay. The House of Books of Hampden.
The library is located in the Hampden Hall and includes new computers, which will see more locals being able to access the internet. The opening ceremony included Hampden Hall committee members who had donated the extra space needed for the extension, plus friends of the library members who donated Lego for the children's area, and the 15 volunteers who helped refurbish the library. In Hampden, The South Today.
After the break on the South Today, the Dunedin Botanic Gardens retains its 6-star rating, and we check out the weather.
If you're at risk of developing melanoma skin cancer, you owe it to yourself to have a mole map. Mole map is coming to your area. Phone today to make an appointment. It could save your life.
Welcome to Alex Campbell Menswear. Our 3 stores have no shortage of stock. Check these out. We've got the Dunedin print t-shirts. Check out our zillions of short sleeve shirts. These are crackers. They iron themselves in the wash. Iron cheater they're called. And there's some really cool polo shirts. Look at all the bright colours. And of course there's no shortage of shorts. This is always one of our brightest colours. Our long sleeve fashion shirts. Jeans, casual trousers, dress trousers, you name it, we have you covered.
Alex Campbell Menswear, it fits.
So if you're shopping for your family or yourself, come and see Alex Campbell Menswear stores. We're full of stock.
A poorly maintained heat pump can lose up to 35% of its output. The Mr. Heat Pump Cleaner team are experts. Their specially developed chemical wash is totally biodegradable. Call Mr. Heat Pump Cleaner and get the job done by the professionals.
Welcome back. The Dunedin Botanic Gardens has retained its 6-star rating as one of New Zealand's top garden experiences. The garden was established in 1863 as the country's first botanic garden. It now boasts almost 7,000 plant species with themed garden collections and an aviary. Gardens that are awarded 6 stars are rated as having the highest levels of presentation, design and plant interest throughout the year. And now recapping tonight's top stories on the South Today. The Prime Minister has announced the loosening of COVID-19 restrictions following news of 2 new people with COVID-19 related to Papatoetoe High School. A couple of rugby playing school pupils are getting serious outdoor training with the aid of a very woolly sheep. And Dunedin entertainer Rainbow Rosalind is celebrating success after being named Children's Educator of the Decade. And now for a look at what's happening in tomorrow's ODT. Welcome, Hayden.
Good evening, Sophie. How are
you?
you?
Very well. How are you?
Good. Boy, it's been a busy afternoon. A lot of
has.
news flying around. We start obviously with COVID-19, and I suppose quite welcome news that we are to return to level 1 at midnight tonight, which is great. And our immediate focus is on the organisers of all of those events that were sort of nervously waiting for news. So everything from Challenge Wanaka and the cricket and the Highlanders next week, a lot of sport happening, to AMP shows, the big bagpipe extravaganza this weekend, orientation events. Boy, there's lots and lots happening, so I'm sure they are all saying thank goodness, and fingers crossed we can get through smoothly for the rest of the week, the month and the year. So a lot of COVID stuff, and in breaking news this afternoon, the cornrow hairstyle issue which has popped up. The young lad out at King's High School told he couldn't have cornrows. It looks like the school has backed down and agreed to let the young man have his cornrows, so we're going to have the latest on that and a bit of a look at what it means, the cultural significance behind the cornrow style. So an interesting topic. Down in Invercargill, a big day for Marcus Lush. Obviously Marcus is a very well-known radio and TV personality. Well, he can now add Invercargill City Councillor to his CV. He has won the by-election in a landslide. So we're having a chat to Marcus today about how he's feeling and what his hopes for that fine city are and his hopes for the time he's about to spend on council. So a lovely story about the sort of the mannequins that have been left over from the closure of H&J Smith ahead of a big auction of all sorts of stuff. So if you're keen on a store mannequin sofa, you can get along there. There's lots of different options. Fabulous photo, which you'll see hopefully on page 1 tomorrow. And finally tonight, there's another big meeting up in Wakawaiti following the sort of lead and water issue. Yes. Community board meeting, and we will be there to see how those folks are feeling now, because that's still an issue obviously that hasn't completely gone away. So somehow we're going to have to fit all of that stuff into tomorrow's ODT, but it's going to make for good reading.
Jam-packed. Thank you, Hayden. And now for a look at the weather.
Tonight's weather proudly brought to you by Mole Map.
Starting with the southern view, cobwebs and an inner city parking meter. Looking at the situation, a big high pressure anticyclone will move only slowly over the South Island in the next few days, bringing a long spell of fine and mild weather. Starting off at the northwest of the South Island, sunshine here with 21 degrees in Greymouth and 20 in Westport. Sunny in the east as well with 22 in Nelson and 21 in Blenheim. In Canterbury, clear days here as well with 19 degrees in Kaikoura, 21 in Christchurch and 22 in Ashburton. To the southern towns, light winds and fine conditions with 22 degrees in the Catlins, 23 in Lumsden and Gore and 24 in Balclutha. In central, light winds and fine as well with 27 degrees in Queenstown and Wanaka as well as Alexandra and 21 in Te Anau. To the northern towns, light to moderate winds and fine conditions with 22 degrees in Timaru, 21 in Oamaru and 28 in both Twizel and Omarama. In Dunedin, fine and cold tonight with a low of 6. Sunny and mild tomorrow with moderate northeasterly winds, a high of 20 and a low of 7. Similar on Friday with a high of 21 and a low of 8. And in Invercargill, clear and cold tonight with a low of 5. Fine and sunny tomorrow with milder temperatures and light winds, a high of 21 and a low of 7. Similar on Friday, a high of 23 and a low of 7. That's all for our news this Wednesday. For the latest news from the southern region, head online to odt.co.nz or follow Channel 39 on Facebook and YouTube. Thanks for joining us. Ka kite anō.
This bulletin proudly brought to you in association with Alex Campbell's Menswear.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.